Hi, I'm Donna Jordan from Jordan Fabrics. Today we're going to make a quilt called Classic Layer Cake, and it uses layer cake squares. Layer cakes are 10-inch square sets. There's usually 40 in each one, and so they will come packaged like this. We have colorful ones. Sometimes they'll be packaged like this, and this is the one I'm going to use today. So it's got 40 squares. We're going to make the twin size, which needs 34, so this will just be perfect. We are also going to need 3 yards of solid white that we are going to use on the background and the inner border. So now we can go down to the studio and get started. The first thing we're going to do is open up the package of the layer cake squares here. And we're going to separate them into 3 different stacks because some of them need to go in the center, some need to go in these outside triangles, and the rest are going to go in that little patchwork. So I'm going to pick out some of the fabrics that I like a lot for the center. I really like that print. That will make a really good center square. And I've got that one, I think, in a couple of colors. So I'm also going to use this in the center square. I'm probably going to eliminate this print altogether because it's quite a bit different. You may find this in a lot of your collections of pre-cut things. One print that it's a great accent, but I think it's a little too strong. So we won't use that. We'll use this in the center. And then I'm going to pick out some that are going to go around that and then pick out the rest. So I'm going to make 3 separate stacks. I have my 10-inch squares separated into 3 separate stacks. And I can't give you all the cutting sizes because it's not my pattern. But cozy quilt designs are very easy to follow. That's one thing I love about them. So we are going to cut some squares out of this stack, some triangles out of this stack, and some strips out of this stack. Now that the patchwork is cut, we're going to want to get the background all cut up. All the background pieces are cut. All the patchwork pieces are cut. Everything is ready to go, so let's go to the sewing machine. I've pulled off the pieces for the first block. So we're going to start with the center square and these 4 guys. Now the easiest way to make this is to fold this in half and make a little crease there with your fingernail on both sides. I'm just marking the center, and that will mark it enough. It doesn't have to be a pencil line, just a little divot there. Now I'm going to take the first piece of the triangles here. I'm going to do the same thing, just mark it a little so I can see the center. So I'm going to put that line right on that line, and then I know I have this perfectly centered, and I'm going to stitch it on with a careful 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now we're going to stitch another triangle onto the other side. So again, I'm going to mark the center and put that on that little line right there and stitch this second triangle on. Now I'm going to open these up, and I'm going to have my seam allowances going away from the center, and I'm just going to finger press this. I'm going to just smash it down a little bit. I'm not going to stretch it. Same thing over here. And now we're ready to sew the last 2 triangles on. Now this triangle here, you don't have to mark the center of it. You don't have to mark the center there because this one is going to fit on here with about a 1/4 inch at each end. So just center it up so there's about the same amount down here as there is there. And don't worry if it's not perfect because we're going to trim these blocks when we're done. And so it won't matter if it's not 100% in the center. Same thing on the other side. Again, this is pretty easy to center it up. You just put same amount up here as you've got down there and stitch it on. Now we want to iron this nice and flat. So I like to smooth it with my hands. Press that side open. Press that side open, then grab your iron. I like to do dry first and then steam it. And you do not need to worry about this extra bit here because it's going to get trimmed off right now when we trim the block. Now the pattern will tell you exactly how big to trim this, but we're going to trim a little bit off of each side. And that's why I was saying it doesn't matter if you trim off the extra dog ear, because it's all going to get cut off right now. Now we're going to use the same procedure to sew these triangles onto this square. So I'm not going to fold it. I'm just going to make a little line with my fingernail straight out from there. If you think you need more, you can fold it, but it's hard to get it creased there. And I can pretty much see where the center is. Now this one I'm going to have to fold, make a little mark. So I'm going to put that right in the center. You can always line it up with your intersection there and then slide it over. And stitch on, again, with the 1/4 inch. Finger press again with the seam away from the center, just a little bit. Same with this guy. And you'll notice here, this seam doesn't come all the way up to that intersection, which is great because then we're going to have sharp corners every time. Now these dog ears should be trimmed off before you iron it because too much of them would be left even after we trim. There's quite a bit of this left. So just take some scissors and trim those guys off. Now we will open this up and iron it. Now we're going to trim this down a little bit. Also, all 4 sides. That block is done. So now we're going to make a total of 18 of these blocks. I have all of these patchwork blocks finished, and now we're going to work on the next step. So we've got a lot of printed strips here. They're all the same size, and we have 3 different sizes of backgrounds. The first thing we're going to make is a strip unit with this guy, with 1 strip on each side. I'm using the same careful 1/4 inch seam that we try to use on all of our patchwork. Press the seam toward the darker fabric, away from the background. Again, seam towards the print. Next, we need this medium piece of background, 2 of them, and we're going to put 1 of the printed strips in the middle. Seam allowances still toward the dark print. Now we need 3 backgrounds and 2 printed strips. All of these seam allowances get pressed towards the dark print. Now we've got these 3 blocks done. Now these blocks don't actually go in the quilt. These are all going to get subcut so that we can mix the pieces around to make this second block that's in the quilt. So to subcut them, they're all going to get cut exactly the same. So you can stack them up and cut them all at once if you like. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just staggering them a little bit so I don't get too much bulk in one spot, and then I can do all the subcutting at the same time. So to make our block, we're going to use 2 of these guys, 1 of these, and 2 of these. Now, of course, I'm going to make a lot of different units and cut them up, so every block will look different. But all we have to do now is stitch them all together. And look, the seam allowances are all going in opposite directions. So when we sew these together, look, those seams are all going to nest, making it really easy to get everything lined up. All the blocks are done. Now we can lay out the quilt. So we're going to start with this guy down in the corner. And we're just going to go every other block. So there's going to be 3 of these. So we're going to have a total of 5 in the first row. So we're going to alternate with these ones here. And at this point, I'm not going to worry about what color of these blocks I'm putting where. I'm just going to alternate them and lay out the whole quilt. When I'm all done, I will stand back and see if I have too much blue in one spot or too much pink in one spot, or matches. I don't like to do matches, so I will sometimes turn things around or trade around so that the quilt will look nice and balanced. I have all the blocks laid out and I've moved things around a bit. Usually what I do at this point is see what's the most prominent color, and to me it's this dark blue. So I've put the blue, I've spread it out so that it's not all bunched in one spot. Also, these pink blocks show a little bit and there's a little there, so I've kind of spread the pink out. So I usually just stand back and squint at it a little bit and then see if anything looks like it's out of place. I think it's ready, so I'm going to sew all the rows together. I have the whole top stitched together, but I still need to pick a border. Now the pattern calls for a small border that's the same as the background, so we'll be doing a white border. And then we just need one fairly big border around the outside. So I brought some scraps here, and this is the collection of fabrics up here. I think I would like to do a blue print. This one would be nice. That would make a nice big border. And then once we get it quilted, we'll pick out a binding. The borders are on, the quilt is loaded on the machine. Now we want to pick a thread color. I do like a nice light thread. This one, it's a little bit too dull looking. Blue would be nice. That'll show on everything a little, so will the pink. I think that this nice light peach will be the best. Let's try that one today. For the quilting pattern, I'm going to use one called Variety. It has nice curves. No particular motif, no flowers, no feathers, nothing that really shows up. It's just an all-over pattern that I think will look really good on this quilt. I still need to pick out a binding print. So I've got the fabrics over here. This is what I used on the back. And I'm thinking that this will make a nice binding, but let's go hold it up to the quilt and see if this looks good with that outside border. So there's the back, there's the border. That will make a really nice binding, and it looks good against the border and the back. Perfect. Here's the finished coffee cake quilt. It's 66 by 86. So it's a big twin size quilt. This one was nice because there's two distinct blocks in the quilt. We've got this one, and then we've got this one here. But when you blend them all together, you now can see a soft chain effect with all these little squares. And I used soft colors. If you use a lot of contrast between your background and your squares here, you will see a stronger chain effect, but I like this because it's soft and blendy. These squares here took a little bit longer because I had to trim them each step, had to trim a little bit off of each block, but that made the blocks perfectly sized, and so then they were easy to match to these blocks. Everything matched up in the corners quite nicely. The quilting pattern with these soft swirls and a little bit of featheriness, it's really fun. It's really pretty on here. You can't really see the quilting on the back too much, but I love this print on the back. I like to use a big scale print on the reverse side because we see the back of the quilt sometimes as much as we see the front. When we've got it wrapped around us, that back is going to be showing. Thanks for watching our tutorial today on how to make the coffee cake quilt. We hope you enjoyed it. Now we're having a giveaway, a new giveaway. We have 2 runners, so we're going to give these to 2 different winners. We have Kay Fassett. Brilliant prints, red and blue, really fun. Then we have this nice floral. This is from Robert Kaufman. It's called Florentina Rose. So it's very easy to enter all of our giveaways. Just click the button below that says giveaway and put in your email address and your name. And remember, we can ship these to anybody worldwide. Good luck. Now, if you don't want to miss any of our latest tutorials, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Happy quilting!